What is up, wrestling fans, and all rise for an all-new edition of the Parts Unknown podcast. I'm, of course, the Tribal Chief of Ringside Intel, Jason Burgos, and with me, as always, is the ultimate wise man warrior of our show, and that is the one and only Jose Maldonado, Baby Blue. How are you doing for this latest episode of the show?
Feeling good, man. Appreciate the intro as always, man. You know how to bring somebody out. You know what I mean? And I'm rocking a little bit of the Baby Blue, so living up to the moniker today. And I'd also be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the emblem on the hat, the freshly minted American League East champions. And I see you repping your boys there. I'm wishing them luck this weekend. So go Mets, you know, but the Yanks clinched it last night. So I got to celebrate a little bit. A little tip of the cap, literally.
And I'm going to totally give myself a shout out. If you're interested, if there's any Mets fans watching, please go to Sports9, where I'm also managing editor, with my interview with JD Martinez, baby. Go check that out. Talk with JD. So, but we're going to have a lot of topics on the show today. We're going to talk a little bit about these rumors and various reports about Rey Fénix and Penta and their possibly leaving AEW. We're going to talk about Motor City Machine Guns. It all seems confirmed that they're going to be joining WWE as part of NXT and might be showing up for this first show on CW Network coming up. We're also going to talk about AEW being on Max, reports about Miro, rumors about Malakai Black, Kevin Owens. What's his future going to be? He's not sure. He's not definitely staying WWE. And then we're going to top it off with WWE Bad Blood predictions. But first, let's talk about it. A lot of reports on the Lucha Brothers over the last few weeks. A week ago, from when we're recording this, there was various outlets saying that Rey Fénix and Penta El Zero Miedo, that they had signed contracts with WWE, even though they're still in AEW, but I guess the old back channels discussions, and they were heading there, just waiting for the contract to end. That was quickly shot down. Now this week, today, as we're recording this, the newest reports are that Penta's probably on his way out in the next couple of months. There's nothing holding him back, but Tony Khan is going to use the classic WWE tactic of tacking on some injury time to Rey Fénix's contract, and this guy may not be going anywhere for at least a year now, which is the reports, which is a damn shame. We may not see Lucha Brothers together again for possibly close to a year. It's changed where we were going, but the first, let's just focus then on Penta, because it seems like he's heading to WWE. What does his signing mean to WWE? What does he bring to the table? And is he can he still be impactful if he's not being packaged with his brother as part of the Lucha Brothers and WWE?
Well, the first thing and foremost it'll mean, if history says anything, it's a new variation of his name. You know, we're going to have, we've had Pentagon Zero, we've had Penta Cero Miedo. So, yep. And I'm surprised we all got used to that one, how it rolls on the tongue, as you rolled it off the tongue a little bit ago. But yeah, it'll be interesting what his name ends up being in WWE land. But yeah, it's interesting because this is a man who has a rabid fan base going back at least a decade here in the States and farther, down in Mexico. And he's getting a little up there in years, but that really doesn't mean a whole lot these days. We've talked in the past about how if you look at the stars currently in WWE at the top, they're at about the same ballpark in age-wise as Penta is right now. So I think he can still be impactful. It'll be interesting to see how they decide to present them, because one thing that WWE has fallen into lately, which not necessarily lately, but the whole LWO thing. Any big Hispanic wrestler and everything that comes in, they just kind of shoehorn them into that faction. They tried to present Dragon Lee on his own, didn't quite take off like they hoped, so they just stuck him with the LWO. Yeah. Even somebody like Santos Escobar, who fell out of the LWO, but immediately started feuding with them and that kind of thing. So it's like, will Penta fall into that same vortex to use a fan terminology? I hope not, but it'll be really interesting because this is a pretty marquee talent in terms of like popularity, in terms of in-ring, you know what I mean? Like he could make some waves if presented the right way. The problems he's going to have is he usually needs a mouthpiece. Not sure who that would end up being, you know what I mean? I doubt Alex Abrahantes is going to jump with him as well, but yeah, it'll be, I think the potential is there though. If I want to focus on the positive, the potential is there. Dude is incredibly charismatic. The presentation is there in terms of his look. WWE loves them, to present possible action figures, merchandise, all that stuff. He sells all of that, so he's ready made for that. And in terms of match quality, he can definitely still go He may not be the high flyer that his brother is, but he's definitely like entertaining in the ring. He knows how to draw in a crowd. So I think the potential is there. It'll be interesting. I think it just falls on how far they really want to present him, where they even want to put him. Is he going to go straight to the main roster? They're going to try him in NXT first. A lot of things they got to figure out. But I think Penta has the potential to be a breakout star that a lot of his fans are hoping for him to be.
Yeah, I agree. And I think he definitely has a bit more of he's a bit more of a finished product in a lot of ways than Ray is. But and I just think I have a little bit more confidence that they can really maximize his potential with this regime than say if it was like 3-4 years ago, just because they're playing to people's strengths and then trying to hide their weaknesses like they should. And yeah, he's not a talker. His English isn't perfect, stuff like that, but it's still not terrible. But if going with an angle of being mysterious, unpredictable, and playing to his strengths in the ring, I think it could work. If a guy like Gunther can come in and become a top star, now a world champion in a style that necessarily wasn't what worked for a long time in WWE, it says a lot about what can happen, the possibilities. And yeah, it's a guy. He's a guy that many have wondered if he could be in WWE and why he hasn't been. And it's good to see him get this opportunity, possibly when it does come in whatever couple of months, while he's still in wrestler prime years. It can really be impactful and can be fun. And also who he gets matched up with, and the booking could be really fun. And that's a key too. If he gets put in a good feud to start, that sets him on an interesting case. But going on from there to another notable signing is Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin, on two arguably one of the best tag teams of the last decade that haven't been in WWE, maybe the best tag team of all time in Impact / TNA Wrestling. And what's shocking about it, which is very fascinating, but it kind of works with the storyline going on with NXT and TNA, is that they're believed to have signed and they're going to NXT. They're not going to the main roster, even though they honestly could go to the main roster. But and that the focus I wanted to go on is it really does seem like it, and it's fantastic, is that Shawn Michaels, with the I'm sure the help of the entire staff at WWE, is very much trying to bring back classic black and gold NXT. The NXT when Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and Adam Cole and Finn Balor, like when they were getting these big names from outside the WWE, bring them there first, setting them up, building them up, and then going to the main roster. Because in the last bunch of months, they've signed Ethan Page. He's been great. They brought in Sean Spears. They brought in Julia. Like, they're bringing in veterans. They're not just relying on these developmental talents and relying on these young talents. They're bringing in, more grizzled veterans to the roster. And not much. You don't get more grizzled veteran than Motor City Machine Guns. So, what are your thoughts on this? Is this? Do you feel that there is a strategy now, especially now they're going to CW Network? There's rumors that this debut episode is going to really have some fun surprises and stuff like that. Do you feel like that's where they're going? They're trying to bring back classic gold and black and gold NXT. And do you feel that they're close to capturing that essence?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think this is a concentrated effort on their part to bring back a little bit of that shine, because, if we're talking about the peak of NXT, that's the peak for a lot of people, that black and gold era. And this makes all the sense of the world for all parties involved. Bringing in the veterans and having them at the top of the card, somebody like an Ethan Page, who, fans have been waiting for him to be showcased in this light, and he has knocked it out of the park to his credit, is the perfect mix to blend with their up and coming talent, their developmental talent, which also gets showcased. But that's why, they really have the perfect formula going in that regard, where they have the top belts with the women's title and on both sides, and the world titles. But then you have the mid card titles. Both genders have the North American titles now. You got the tag team titles. It's a showcase for both sides of the coin. Yeah. And bringing in the Motor City Machine Guns, I think, to NXT directly does them a whole lot of good. Because honestly, the tag team division in the main roster, if we're being honest, isn't being showcased to its full potential at this point. One of the sacrifices that Triple H's visions for live events for PLEs is that there's less matches of higher quality. There's higher quality matches, but there's less of them. So certain titles get thrown by the wayside. When was the last time we saw a tag team title match on a PLE? It's been a long time. Where in NXT, if the Motor City Machine Guns are sent there, they have more of a chance to be a showcase of that brand. And at this point in their career, I think that's more valuable to them Sure, they might get a shot at the main roster down the line, and I'm sure they'd love that WrestleMania moment and things like that. But in terms of making an immediate impact, this is the best position they could be put in. They can make a whole lot of waves with the CW debut. This could be really big things for NXT. It's so funny to think that technically they're the only WWE brand currently on a broadcast network. I mean, which is crazy to think. So this could mean big things for NXT if they handle it right. And I think it is a concentrated effort on WWE's part to bring in these veterans to kind of carry a lot of the load and bring up the developmental talents while they're showcased. They're in a good position. So I think MGMT is going to be in a good spot.
And what's so good about what they're doing right now is what was so great about the classic black and gold peak era of NXT was it had cool factor. And I think that's something that NXT's kind of starting to get back now, not just because of their signing veterans, but like this partnership with TNA. Like it adds an unpredictability to it. You're not sure what's going to happen, who's going to show up. The Joe Henry, bringing him in while he's red hot, has helped them a lot. They're cool again. And they continue to bring in veterans that have a name and just bolster the roster and get away from that departure of the 2.0 era, which was terrible. It's not only do they have two good brands, they're starting to have a legitimate third brand again, and at a peak period, which is impressive because that when NXT was best, it was arguably maybe the better than Raw and SmackDown in a lot of ways. So I think that's one of the most exciting things about it, and why I this October 1 debut on CW Network is really a NXT must watch just to see what happens. It's going to be such an interesting thing, and I'm curious to watch it as well. Of course, as always, please, wherever you're watching, listening, please like, share, subscribe, comment. What do you think about how NXT has been, its upcoming debut on CW Network? Are you excited about Penta possibly being in WWE? Going to another rumor, AEW related, we covered it on the site, is that it looks like from new reports is that AEW, we've heard it for a long time. They're going to have this deal they're probably going to finalize a new deal with Warner Brothers Discovery, and Max, HBO Max, or just Max is going to be an important element of it. And a new report suggested that, as many have hoped, AEW pay-per-views will be on Max. It isn't clear yet if it's going to be behind a paywall. I don't think it will be. I mean, I think they're going for the same element of what WWE has on Peacock, and it could start in January, or it could possibly even start before that. As a person who watches AEW even more closely than I do, who's willing to pay for the pay-per-views more than I'm willing to. Why does this matter for the average fan, for a AEW fan base that has kind of shrunk in the last 2 years? Why is it so important for them to be on Max, and hopefully just for a subscription fee?
Availability is key. That is absolutely huge. This is something that fans have been waiting for a long time. Like you said, they still use the old pay-per-view model of ordering, paying, $49.99, whatever the price may be, on various different platforms. But the fact that you have to go out of your way to pay for pay-per-views at this point, where fans have been conditioned to the WWE model for whether it was on WWE Network or Peacock for about a decade now, it's like watching a movie without knowing the ending, because you see all the setup on the weekly programs. But if you're not willing to plunk down $50 to see it on pay-per-view, you miss out on what's arguably the best part of the AEW product, which is their fantastic match quality and the kickers to their storylines. So if you're not willing to put down that price, you're missing out. And that might be a big disconnect with a lot of the fans. If they're able to see the pay-per-views, through a Max subscription, I can get everything that's wrapped up with that as well. With, Max may not be Disney Plus in terms of subscriber count, but it's pretty impressive. That's a hell of a lot more than just asking people to pay $50 on top of everything for strictly the pay-per-view event. So I think it'll be a huge thing. It could really help AEW turn a corner in terms of at least, just putting the best of the product into fans' hands on a more regular basis. It's something that they could just point to and in a very positive light, which would really help the brand. To your point, we've talked about the dwindling attendance, the attention to the storylines just hasn't been there. So something like this could be a real game changer for AEW, and I'm sure fans are really hoping for it. I really do hope it comes to fruition.
I'm not going to go as far as turning a corner good. I think they got too many deep embedded issues with creative, but I think it helps them survive. And I'm sure the thinking is, they're losing money. But if WWE was moved to Peacock and putting events on, well, no, they were on WWE Network first, then Peacock, and putting a pay-per-view premium live events without any extra cost can do it. It just shows you can still make a ton of money in this industry without it. They got a good TV deal. Honestly, if Tony wasn't throwing ridiculous sums of money at certain talent, they'd be fine. Either way, I think this will help them survive because it at least keeps their fan base, the diehards, their limited core audience happy. And that because that's a turnoff. At a certain point, you've already seen some of them turn away on TV, which is already free or whatever they're paying with their paid subscription. Asking them to pay another $50 for events every couple of months, whatever. It's just too much of an ask in this era. So to keep your fans happy and like, oh, I can watch this content and see a pay-per-view. You may pull some fans that maybe weren't watching to back. It even intrigued me, especially because they have been doing these subscription packages where it's like Hulu, Disney Plus, and Max. You get in on that, you get Disney Plus and Max or Hulu if you already want that or whatever. So it's a perfect time to do it, and it intrigues for people that weren't willing to play the price like I was. I'll maybe be more willing to watch if I'm not doing much on a Saturday or Sunday night, which is key.
What do you have to lose?
Yeah. So I think it's a big plus for them. More AEW news. This week, it was reported that Miro has asked for his release. Who knows if he'll get it? I mean, I don't know. They might as well. They don't use the guy, and they can't come to agreement on how to use the guy. So what are you keeping it for? That's why the Ray Phoenix thing is funny in that they're doing the classic WWE sneaky, slimy thing. They were supposed to be the company that is for the performer, and we're not going to be like WWE, but y'all going to be petty and just keep this guy for like a year, even though he clearly doesn't want to be there. He was offered a new contract, doesn't want to be there. Same thing with Miro. If he doesn't work with you guys, you don't use him, just let him go. Like, is Miro just going to go to WWE and become a superstar? Probably not, but the fact that you are scared about that shows a lot about the product and that you can't make the most of them. That said, also, there were reports this week, Malakai Black. Tony Khan said that he has like 5 years on it. It was a 5-year deal. And now the report's saying that he's probably his contract might be up at the end of the year or early next year. And there's a lot of questions about Malakai Black and how he's been used and rumors about how he is to work with the back. He might be of that contingent that doesn't like doing jobs too. What is like your overall lasting memory if both of them don't stay in AEW past 2025 or past 2024? Like, what are your overall thoughts of how Miro and Malakai Black have been used in AEW during their tenures?
I think the best way to sum it up would be a lack of trust. And, because, they've both been featured to varying degrees, a lot of times very well. Like the Redeemer era of Miro, I think is the one that everybody's going to remember most fondly from AEW. And that was a tremendous run. He was presented as a legitimate monster. They gave him the TNT title to run with it. He was a weekly highlight of their programming. They trusted him enough to do so. However, if the reports are to be believed about Miro not necessarily wanting jobs, same thing with Malakai Black. If the reports are to be believed about them being unhappy and wanting to leave at certain points, that's where you start pulling the reins back a little bit, and all of a sudden they're not showcased as well or as much. Malakai more so has been showcased, and I think that has a lot more to do with like Buddy Matthews and Brody King. That they're more of a package deal. And Julia Hart, cannot forget that. It's so interesting to me that I had so very little faith in Julia Hart becoming a part of that faction, and she's honestly probably been the highlight of that faction. She's been out with injury and things like that, but she was such a great addition and such a great showcase for the women's division during her time with that, and she like really shot off like a rocket. But it just shows that it's hard to trust creatively talents that are giving off signs that they don't necessarily have the company's best interest at heart. And to your point, this is the problem you run into when you like present yourself as so bluntly the way that Tony did, where we're not going to be the same as WWE. We're going to be the wrestler friendly company that's going to do right by their talent. That's going to not slap people in contracts that they don't want to be in. At the end of the day, business is business. And if you have talents that are trying to pull the strings to get out a certain way that may hurt your brand, you're going to do whatever you can to protect your company. It's just smart business. It's not personal. When you present it as this is, we're going to be personal with the wrestlers, and this is the place for them to come. It's going to be this safe haven, and then all of a sudden you turn around and do things like you're reportedly doing to Phoenix and to Miro and to Malakai. You come off as a bit of a hypocrite, or your words don't mean as much. So what does that present to future talent that may want to take a chance on your company? What does that present to fans? When you're presenting your brand as a certain way, then all of a sudden it's just the same old, same old. It's a lot of complications with things like that. So it'll be interesting to see where this all lands. But it's not all wine and roses. When it comes to AEW.
And it's just, to me, I look at both of them as kind of wasted time. I mean, Malakai has done more. He's had a lot of much more cool moments, but he's just kind of been a part of a trio and a trio tag team for the most part. Like he's even barely a singles wrestler, which is kind of a waste. I'm sure he's not getting paid a cheap money. And same thing with Miro. I mean, a guy like Bobby Lashley should look at Miro, should look at Keith Lee. They don't seem to really like using big guys, and they don't seem to know what to do with them. So, Bobby, if you think you're going to go there and just be great, I would be concerned. They just don't know what to do with them. But yeah, it's just we can easily say, I mean, they're part of the problem. But if there's poor leadership and you're trying to be pals with people and you're not trying to be somebody's boss, it's like kids. They're going to see what one other kid gets and is able to do, and they're going to try to do the same thing. So there's a bunch of guys. There's some guys that are turning down taking losses and but still be rewarded. They're just going to learn from the other ones. They're going to try the same thing. So it's on them, but it's also, again, another example of you're scared to be a boss and drop the hammer early, send messages and keep your inmates in line. And that's always been a problem for AEW, and that's why they have these issues and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a shame if they both go back to WWE. I mean, Miro's a weird character. He's talented, but he's so hit or miss sometimes. He can be good if they try the Redeemer thing. I think the tough thing about right now is that for anybody that comes in, it's kind of like when WWE and WCW went out of business and they were coming. There's but so many spots. We might get 6 hours of Raw and SmackDown combined, maybe starting next year, but still, there's but so many spots. There's already a lot of people that are embedded as top stars. Some people might get pushed up, but it's going to be hard. There's just but so many spots. So for people coming in now, it's much tougher for them unless you're a huge star, which, only I think if a Moxley or something like that came over, they go right to the top. But yeah, it's a weird thing. Again, please like, share, subscribe, comment. What are your thoughts on Miro, Malakai Black if they're going back? They're asking or looking for possible ways out of AEW, but somebody that's surprisingly interesting situation. Kevin Owens. Reports were maybe a couple months ago that his contract is expiring, but he came to terms on a new deal. In an interview not too long after that, he said, "No, my contract is just less time than it was in first reports," and he hadn't resigned. Supposedly WWE has started making overtures to get that deal done, but AEW is lurking in the background and ready to throw big money at him. Supposedly, not surprised by that. How big of a loss would it be for WWE if they lost Kevin Owens, in your opinion, considering how strong the roster is? Why does he matter so much that it would make a big difference if they lost him?
Because any sports team, you need great utility players. And that's what Kevin Owens is. He's been the type of talent that you could plug in anywhere, as a heel, as a babyface, top of the card, middle of the card, anywhere on the card. Kevin Owens is an invaluable piece to any roster. He's super popular. He's super good at what he does. He's amazing in the ring. He checks off all the boxes. And, that's not something that WWE should take for granted. I mean, WWE will be fine. Right now, they are rolling along at a point to where it's one of the peaks the company has ever seen.
Yeah.
But they need to be careful with people like Kevin Owens, because Kevin Owens is a very important part of whatever show he's on, and he fills a lot of gaps. For example, Cody has needed substantial feuds while this Bloodline storyline has kind of rolled along, and to kind of fill out his world title reign. What did they do? They plugged in Kevin Owens in a very interesting role to where they didn't even have to turn him heel. It was babyface, but he was able to pull it off because he's such a compelling character, and that's another skill that he has. He's great on the mic. You know what I mean? You put a mic in his hand, and you put him out there. You got 10 quality minutes of showtime. So he's absolutely terrific, and I can definitely see AEW moving mountains to try to get him over there. He has a lot of historic ties with a lot of the talent over there, including the Bucks. You know what I mean? He's the one that kind of connected the Bucks with Cody back in the day, and told the Bucks to kind of take care of him out in the Indies. So there would be people in AEW that would be more than happy to have Kevin Owens on the show, and he would be tremendous on the show. What I am always worried about, given AEW's history, is what does that even mean? You know what I mean? Like, there are people in AEW doing some of the best work of their career. You look at somebody like Christian, who is always, fans were screaming for years that Christian is so underutilized in WWE. AEW, to their credit, has tremendously utilized him in various roles, but it hasn't meant a whole lot. You know what I mean? And I think Kevin Owens, despite how great he is, would fall into a similar vein to where he'd be doing the same terrific work he's doing in WWE, but to a much smaller audience. And all credit to the guy. I don't think he would do much to change that scenario.
I love Kevin Owens. And he's a legend. And if he left, yeah, you know, WWE would chug along. Their roster is as strong as ever, and they got a bunch of AEW people that are looking to leave and can fill the void. But yeah, it's just he can do everything. If you want a sniveling, cowardly bad guy, he can do it. If you want a dangerous bad guy that's going to powerbomb you on the apron, he can do it. If you want a lovable underdog type, he can do it. Like, he can wrestle, he can go on. He's so valuable. You can put him in so many ways. And I think you also hit it on the head. Like, okay, he goes to AEW, and then what? Like, I've lost complete trust in they'll really maximize this guy's ability. Like, he's just another name. And the funny thing about it is that he was on the independent scene known as he's a classic independent darling. People had doubts if he would make it in WWE because of his look and everything like that. And man, he is a talent that fits perfectly into the WWE style because it's a variety show and he can be used in a variety of ways. AEW doesn't do that. Like, you want him to go put on a good match? Okay, cool. But then there's like a bunch of other people in the roster that do that. Like storytelling style. Oh, he's going to talk to the camera with Renee Young in the background and set up a story. Or he's going to cut he can do so much more, and they're going to use him in a very basic way. And it's kind of just a waste of this extreme talent. Okay, we'll get to see Kevin Steen again. Great. Like, is that, we kind of found out maybe that wasn't enough, and that's why he's brought so much variety to his character. So it's a weird thing, and it would be a shame. I hope he comes to term and stays in WWE. I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves, just because he's been around. He's been around in WWE for decades. Like, what else is there to do? And they're not going to make him the man. He's not going to be world champion. He's a guy that wants something creative to sink his teeth into. And going over there, being with the Bucks, it makes a lot of sense. So I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves. It'd be a bummer, but he'd just be wasted again. He'd be another Daniel Bryan kind of thing. But that said, let's wrap up the show with some WWE Bad Blood predictions. It's coming up about a week from when we're recording this. A very good show. First, let's go with the match that, considering this event was called Bad Blood, I originally predicted this, but it didn't happen. One of my predictions got wrong, but I would have loved for them to do Damian Priest, Finn Balor, First Blood. First Blood on Bad Blood would have made a lot of sense, and there's so much Bad Blood. But this feud isn't going to end there. There might be more matches. Maybe Bad Blood does eventually. First Blood does happen. But Damian Priest versus Finn Balor. What's your pick on this? Where do you see this match going?
I think Balor wins. I think the numbers game is going to come into play. I think he needs it a little bit more. And storyline-wise, I think it's a little more interesting if Balor takes this first one. And I don't think it's going to end here. So I think Balor takes this first chapter.
I'm going to go in a different direction. I think Priest is going to win. And I think it's not going to end. So they're just going to do more things to torment him. They're going to make it, this is going to say, I can see just because they've gotten over on Priest and Rhea so much recently that I just feel like it's just kind of overdue that he's going to just smash him, but it's not going to be over there in a lot of ways. Moving on from there, you got this fascinating matchup between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, who had just a cinema segment a couple weeks ago, SmackDown that the fans absolutely loved. It was done masterfully against the Bloodline team of Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. How do you see this one? Because the current odds has Cody and Roman as huge favorites. For this one, I feel like the Bloodline's probably going to win this. I think, this is long game. This Bloodline thing is not going to end with Roman and Cody. I think we all know it. We all know what's going to happen. It's going to be Bloodline versus Bloodline. So it's not ending here. So I just feel like this is just a chapter in that story. And while it's cool and it's like a mega powers moment, I don't think they're going to beat the Bloodline. I think the Bloodline's going to get a surprising win here, upset win. It's going to just add to this. Roman and Cody just can't get along. Roman can't rely on Cody to end this thing. He needs family to beat family. What about you?
I hate to say it, but I think the odds are right on this one. I don't think there's a scenario where Cody and Roman lose this one. Yeah, I got to go in the other direction on this one. I think there's ways that they can keep the storyline going, but the question I ask myself is who takes the pin in that scenario? Odds are it'll probably be Cody, but that doesn't do a whole lot of good to present your world champion as the most vulnerable one in the match. So I think Cody and Roman win this one here. I think there'll still be dissension between them. I think the bloodline gets their heat back probably after the match or something to that effect. But I think the overwhelming odds are painting the right picture in this scenario.
All right, moving on from there. Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley in a rematch from SummerSlam. Liv is actually a surprising favorite going into this. This was a tough one. I really could see it going either way. What does your gut tell you about how this one goes?
And my gut tells me that Rhea is going to reclaim the belt. But it does such a disservice to the story. Liv has been so great in her role next to Dom, and there's still so much left to tell. But Rhea's just like Rhea's Rhea, you know what I mean? And to kind of counteract my prediction earlier, I think Finn is going to beat Damian. I don't think both Damian and Rhea both take the loss here, so I think Rhea is the one that's going to end up on the winning end in this scenario. And we'll see where it goes from there. But I think my gut says Rhea. But I would not be upset at all if Liv retains because that is a fun ride that we have been on, and I wouldn't mind for that to continue.
Going on from it's a tough one. I feel I'm going to go in the direction. I mean, I feel Liv probably wins, and I think they go in another direction. Like they just it's a tough one because how do you end the feud with Finn and Damian, but end the feud there. But I just feel like it's going to go in a different direction. They're probably going to end there. Or maybe they extend it. Maybe they have a third match, and that's where Rhea wins or something like that. But I feel like Liv's going to win, but I have zero confidence in that. I can see it completely going either way. And that's the magic of wrestling. Moving on from there to a clear, we know what's going to happen. This is as predictable match on the entire card. Gunther versus Sami Zayn. The odds that when this was put up has Gunther had a minus 10,000 odds, which is insane. Is there any reason to think? Forget about. Is there any reason to think Sami Zayn is going to win? Is there any reason to think this is not a one and done, and Gunther moves on to somebody else after this?
That is a more interesting question. I do like that. I would have said yes until I saw the build to this feud, and this has been tremendous. Like it's been a great showcase for Gunther. As this overpowering, just weasel bully of a heel, just refusing to take this match. But I do think ultimately it will be a one and done. I think this is a filler feud, not in a bad sense. It's just a way to establish Gunther's reign that I think will last a long time, which is I think why everybody's just the smart money's on Gunther. So I don't think that changes at all. But it's been a hell of a build. But I think there's no chance for Sami to even sniff the victory here.
Yeah, I don't think so either. There is a decent amount of time between this and November for SummerSlam. So maybe I can see a second match at some point, maybe happening on an episode of Raw, something like that. But I don't think this is going to go much further than this. But Gunther has been great as this kind of bully bad guy who clearly is kind of, for the first time in a while, kind of worried about somebody. Like he really fears that he could lose to Sami. And that's such a great position for Sami to be in, that he's his ultimate underdog, but he got over on him. And he's the one guy that actually Gunther is not overly confident he could be, which is so great. It hasn't been common. It hasn't been a thing. That's what makes Gunther such a great bad guy. He's not your sniveling bad guy where he doesn't get the pin. He's smacking the mat and getting mad. The guy is just always confident, just self-confidence through the roof, just like a professional athlete that's at the highest level of the game. And, they know what they're going to do. But, I think Gunther's going to dominate. He's going to win. And then going to what's likely to be the main event, Hell in a Cell, the final blow-off to the CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, which has been a highlight of the summer. Punk is actually a pretty sizable favorite for this. What's your gut tell you? Does CM Punk leave this feud with the upper hand, or is this a moment that finally, not finally, but just adds more legacy to Drew McIntyre, and legacy isn't necessarily something CM Punk needs?
Arguably, that would be the more beneficial finish. Drew probably would benefit more from a win here, but I think it is going to be Punk just because of what's coming down the line. I don't think there's a way that Punk's not involved in one of the two WrestleMania main events for next year, and I think the momentum starts now. Him winning this feud and kind of catapulting him into I want the world title, getting into that picture, whether it's at Survivor Series, whether it's at Royal Rumble, whether it ultimately ends up being at WrestleMania. Some say that it'll be him and Seth for the title. Who holds the title in that scenario? I could see a world where Punk gets the world title at the Rumble and kind of leads to that clash to where Seth is the challenger or something to that effect. But I think that all starts here with him putting Drew to bed and moving on to bigger and better things. If Drew gets the win here, I think he has a claim to Punk down the line, and I don't think that's where they're going necessarily with that. Not to say Drew doesn't deserve it. He's been tremendous throughout all of this, has really stepped up his game to make himself a part of this picture and keep himself part of it. But I think due to what some fans expect from Punk in the coming months, I think Punk wins the feud ultimately and wins this match.
I'm going with Punk as well, but for the same idea as you're saying down the line, but I think a little close down the line. I think they're kind of been hinting. I think they're going to go CM Punk versus Gunther at the Survivor Series. I don't think CM Punk's going to win that, but I think that's where they're going again to further build Gunther and give him a real big threat, a legendary performer, and that kind of thing. That build should be fun. But yeah, I think that's the main thing. It's CM Punk getting back into the world title picture and building to a big main event kind of matchup at Survivor Series that can sell tickets for that, which will be a big kind of stadium event kind of thing in Toronto. Not Toronto, in Canada. I think it's in Vancouver this year. I think that's where they're going to go. And I'm as a CM Punk fan, I'm not at all sad about that. And in the end, his they got to maximize the time. Yeah, he's got a lot of miles in his body. I love the fact that he's gotten in fantastic shape. I love seeing these memes on social media where it's a picture of him from like Bash of Berlin and last year at AEW and his body, how different he looks. I'm glad he's finally taken his fitness and as seriously as ever knowing he's got unborrowed time. He's not going to be around much longer, so WWE has to maximize that time. I'm going with CM Punk as well. But that is our show for this week. Please, as always, like, share, subscribe. Let us know who you think are going to be the winners at WWE Bad Blood. As always, I'm Jason Burgos. He is Jose Maldonado. Until next time, bye-bye.